What happens when one of the biggest stars in entertainment reaches her breaking point on live television? Tonight, we witnessed something that will go down in talk show history. Jennifer Lopez, known for her composure and professionalism, completely lost it during what was supposed to be a routine appearance on Jimmy Kimmel Live. The moment that shocked millions of viewers started innocently enough, but quickly spiraled into chaos that nobody saw coming. Make sure to subscribe and drop a comment below because this story gets wild. The studio audience was buzzing with excitement as Jennifer Lopez made her entrance, wearing a stunning emerald green dress that caught every light in the room. She waved to the crowd with her signature smile, but those who know her well might have noticed something different in her eyes. There was a tension there, a warning sign that Jimmy Kimmel was about to miss completely. "Jennifer Lopez, everybody," Jimmy announced as the applause died down. "Thank you so much for being here. You look absolutely incredible tonight." "Thank you, Jimmy," Jennifer replied, her voice carrying its usual warmth, but with an edge that was almost imperceptible. "Happy to be here." "Now I have to ask," Jimmy began, leaning forward with that familiar grin. "We've been hearing rumors about some drama behind the scenes of your latest project. Care to set the record straight?" The question hung in the air like a loaded weapon. Jennifer's smile faltered for just a fraction of a second, but she recovered quickly. "You know, Jimmy, I'd rather focus on the positive aspects of my work. The film has been an incredible experience." "Come on, though," Jimmy pressed, clearly not reading the room. "Our sources are telling us there were some pretty heated arguments with the director. Some people are saying you were, let's call it, difficult to work with." The word difficult landed like a slap. Jennifer's posture straightened, and her hands gripped the arms of her chair just a little tighter. The studio audience, sensing the shift in energy, grew quieter. "Difficult?" Jennifer repeated, her voice dropping to a lower register. "That's an interesting choice of words, Jimmy." "Well, you know how it is in Hollywood," Jimmy continued, oblivious to the storm brewing across from him. "Strong personalities, creative differences. It happens to everyone, but when it's Jennifer Lopez, it becomes news." "Strong personalities," Jennifer echoed, and now there was no mistaking the ice in her voice. "Tell me, Jimmy, when a male director has creative differences with his cast, do you call him difficult? When a male actor stands up for his vision, is he labeled as having a strong personality?" Jimmy shifted uncomfortably, but he was in too deep to back down now. "I think you might be reading too much into this, Jennifer. It's just Hollywood gossip. We all know how these stories get blown out of proportion." "Blown out of proportion?" Jennifer's voice was rising now, and the audience was completely silent. "So my reputation, my professionalism, my decades of work in this industry, that's all just blown out of proportion gossip?" "That's not what I meant," Jimmy stammered, finally realizing he had stepped into dangerous territory. "I was just trying to have a conversation about—" "About what exactly?" Jennifer cut him off, her composure cracking. "About how I'm difficult? About how I have a strong personality? About how I should just smile and nod while people spread lies about my character?" The tension in the studio was palpable. Camera operators were getting closer shots, sensing that they were capturing something unprecedented. Jimmy's usual confidence was evaporating before everyone's eyes. "Jennifer, please. I think there's been a misunderstanding." Jimmy tried to salvage the situation. "I respect you enormously. Everyone knows you're one of the hardest working people in the business." "Oh, now I'm hard-working," Jennifer said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "A minute ago I was difficult. Which is it, Jimmy? Am I a dedicated professional or am I the problem?" The audience was frozen, watching this verbal sparring match unfold. Some were pulling out their phones, knowing they were witnessing something that would be replayed countless times across social media. "You're putting words in my mouth," Jimmy protested weakly. "I never called you the problem." "You didn't have to," Jennifer shot back. "It's all right there in your questions, in your assumptions, in the way you're treating me right now. You invited me here to promote my work, but instead you want to tear me down with gossip and innuendo." Jimmy was sweating now, his signature, humor completely absent. "That wasn't my intention at all. I was just—" "You were just what?" Jennifer demanded, leaning forward in her chair. "Just doing your job? Just asking the tough questions? Or were you just looking for a moment that would go viral at my expense?" The question hit Jimmy like a physical blow. He opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity, with millions of viewers holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. The silence was deafening. Jimmy's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, while Jennifer's eyes burned with an intensity that could have melted steel. The studio audience was so quiet you could hear the hum of the cameras, the soft whir of the air conditioning, the collective held breath of 300 people who knew they were witnessing television history. "I'm waiting for an answer, Jimmy," Jennifer said, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "Were you looking for a viral moment at my expense?" Jimmy finally found his voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. "No, Jennifer, I swear that wasn't. I would never—" "You would never what?" Jennifer interrupted, standing up from her chair now. The movement was so sudden, so powerful, that several audience members gasped audibly. "You would never ambush a guest? You would never try to embarrass someone who trusted you enough to come on your show?" "Please, just take your seat," Jimmy pleaded, his hands raised in a gesture of surrender. "We can work through this. We can edit this out if you want." Jennifer let out a laugh that had no humor in it whatsoever. "Edit it out? You think this is about editing? You think you can just cut away the part where you tried to destroy my reputation and everything goes back to normal?" The camera crew was in overdrive now, capturing every angle, every expression. The director in the booth was frantically signaling, unsure whether to cut to commercial or keep rolling on what was clearly the most dramatic moment in the show's history. "I wasn't trying to destroy anything," Jimmy said desperately. "I was just asking questions that people want to know about. It's what we do here." "People want to know?" Jennifer's voice rose another octave. "Or is it what you want them to know? There's a difference, Jimmy, and you're smart enough to understand that difference." Jimmy was now standing too, though he looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. "Jennifer, please, you're one of my favorite guests. You've been on the show so many times. We have a great relationship." "Had," Jennifer corrected sharply. "We had a relationship, past tense, because relationships are built on respect, and you just showed me exactly how much you respect me." The audience was mesmerized, watching this confrontation unfold like a car crash in slow motion. Some were recording on their phones, others were just staring in disbelief. A few looked like they wanted to leave but were too afraid to move. "I do respect you," Jimmy insisted, his voice cracking slightly. "More than you know. You're an icon, a legend, Stop," Jennifer commanded, holding up her hand. "Don't you dare stand there and list my accomplishments like that's going to fix what you just did. You don't get to tear someone down and then build them back up in the same breath." Jimmy ran his hand through his hair, a gesture of pure frustration and panic. "What do you want me to do? How do I fix this?" "You can't," Jennifer said simply, and those two words carried more weight than everything else that had been said. "You can't fix this, Jimmy. You can't take back the assumptions you made. You can't take back the way you treated me. You can't take back the fact that you thought it was okay to come at me like that." "But I can apologize," Jimmy offered weakly. "I can make it right." Jennifer shook her head slowly, and for the first time since this confrontation began, she looked more disappointed than angry. "An apology doesn't change the fact that you thought this was acceptable in the first place. It doesn't change the fact that you prepared these questions, thought about them, and decided that this was how you wanted to treat me." The words hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. Jimmy looked around desperately, as if the audience or his staff could somehow save him from this moment. But there was no rescue coming. "I made a mistake," Jimmy admitted, his voice barely audible. "A huge mistake." "Yes, you did," Jennifer agreed, her voice steady and controlled again. "And the biggest part of that mistake wasn't just asking the questions. It was assuming that I would just take it, smile, and play along. It was assuming that I would prioritize your comfort over my own dignity." Jimmy's face was red now, whether from embarrassment or shame or both. "I never wanted to make you uncomfortable." "But you did," Jennifer replied. "And when I started to push back, instead of backing down, instead of recognizing that you had crossed a line, you doubled down. You kept pushing. You kept trying to make me the problem instead of examining your own behavior." The studio felt like it was shrinking, the walls closing in on this confrontation that nobody had seen coming. The band members were watching with wide eyes. The staff was frozen in place, and the audience was witnessing something that would be talked about for years to come. "What happens now?" Jimmy asked, and it was the first genuine question he had asked all night. Jennifer looked at him for a long moment, and in that silence, you could feel the weight of decades of frustration, of being misunderstood, of being expected to smile through disrespect. When she finally spoke, her words were measured and deliberate. "Now, Jimmy, you get to live with the consequences of your choices, and I get to make a choice of my own." The words, "I get to make a choice of my own," echoed through the studio like a declaration of war. Jimmy's face went pale as he realized that whatever was about to happen, he had no control over it. Jennifer Lopez, one of the most powerful women in entertainment, was about to show him exactly what happens when you underestimate someone who has spent decades fighting for respect in an industry that often refuses to give it. "Jennifer," Jimmy started, but she cut him off with a look that could have stopped traffic. "No, Jimmy, you've had your turn to talk. You've had your turn to ask your questions and make your assumptions. Now it's my turn, and you're going to listen to every single word I have to say." The studio was so quiet that the sound of someone's phone buzzing in the audience seemed as loud as a fire alarm. Jennifer walked closer to Jimmy's desk, her heels clicking against the floor with the precision of a metronome. "Do you know what it's like to work twice as hard as everyone else just to be taken half as seriously?" she began, her voice strong and unwavering. "Do you know what it's like to have every decision you make questioned, every creative choice scrutinized, every moment of passion labeled as being difficult?" Jimmy shook his head slightly, and for the first time all night, he looked like he was actually listening. "I didn't think so," Jennifer continued, "because you've never had to prove yourself the way I have. You've never had to smile through disrespect and call it professionalism. You've never had to choose between standing up for yourself and being labeled as the problem." She paused, letting her words sink in, and the camera caught every nuance of her expression. This wasn't just anger anymore. This was years of frustration finally finding its voice. "When I started in this business, I was told to be grateful for any opportunity. I was told to keep my head down, do the work, and not make waves. And you know what? I did that. For years, I did exactly what I was told. I smiled when I should have spoken up. I stayed quiet when I should have demanded better. I played the game according to rules that were designed to keep me in my place." Jimmy tried to interject again, but Jennifer held up her hand. "But somewhere along the way, I realized something. The game was rigged from the start. No matter how hard I worked, no matter how successful I became, there would always be people like you who thought they could reduce me to gossip and rumors. People who thought they could question my professionalism without questioning their own." The audience was completely captivated now. This wasn't just a confrontation anymore. This was a masterclass in speaking truth to power, and everyone in that room knew they were witnessing something historic. "So when you ask me about being difficult," Jennifer continued, moving even closer to Jimmy's desk, "what you're really asking me is why I won't just accept whatever treatment you think I deserve. When you talk about my strong personality, what you're really saying is that you're uncomfortable with a woman who knows her worth and isn't afraid to demand it." Jimmy's hands were shaking now, visibly trembling as he gripped the edge of his desk. "Jennifer, I'm sorry. I'm truly, deeply sorry. I didn't realize—" "That's exactly the problem," Jennifer interrupted, her voice rising again. "You didn't realize. You didn't think. You just assumed that you could come at me however you wanted, and I would take it. You assumed that your comfort was more important than my dignity." She was directly in front of his desk now, close enough that they were having an intimate conversation in front of millions of viewers. The camera operators were getting shots that would be analyzed frame by frame for years to come. "But here's what you're going to realize right now, Jimmy. I am not your entertainment. My pain is not your punchline. My struggles are not your content. And I will not be disrespected by you or anyone else just so you can have a moment for your highlight reel." The power in her voice was undeniable. This was Jennifer Lopez at her most authentic, her most raw, her most powerful, and Jimmy Kimmel was shrinking before her very eyes. "I understand," Jimmy whispered, and it sounded like a confession. "I understand, and I'm ashamed of myself." "Good," Jennifer replied sharply, "because shame might actually teach you something that success clearly hasn't. It might teach you to think before you speak. It might teach you to consider the impact of your words on other people. It might teach you that being a good host means more than just getting a reaction." She took a step back from his desk, and for a moment it looked like the storm might be passing. But Jennifer Lopez wasn't finished yet. "You want to know what's really difficult, Jimmy? It's being a woman in this industry and having to explain why you deserve basic respect. It's having to justify your emotions when men get praised for the exact same behavior. It's sitting in rooms full of people who think they know your story better than you do." The camera caught a tear rolling down Jimmy's cheek, and the audience gasped softly. This confrontation had broken him completely. "But you know what's even more difficult?" Jennifer continued, her voice softer now but no less powerful. "It's realizing that no matter how successful you become, no matter how much you achieve, there will always be people who see you as less than. People who think your accomplishments are up for debate. People who think your reputation is fair game for their entertainment." She walked back toward her chair, but instead of taking her seat, she reached for her purse. The movement was deliberate, final, and everyone in the studio understood what it meant. "I came here tonight to talk about my work," Jennifer said, slinging her purse over her shoulder. "I came here to share something I'm proud of with people who might enjoy it. But instead, I got ambushed by someone I trusted. Someone I considered a friend." Jimmy finally found his voice again, though it came out cracked and desperate. "Please don't leave like this. Please let me make it right." Jennifer turned to face him one last time, and the look in her eyes was something between pity and disappointment. "You can't make this right, Jimmy. You can only learn from it. You can only do better next time. You can only hope that the next person who trusts you enough to come on your show gets the respect they deserve." She started walking toward the exit, her heels clicking against the floor with the same precision as before. But now, instead of sounding like a metronome, they sounded like a countdown to the end of Jimmy Kimmel's career as he knew it. "Jennifer, please," Jimmy called after her, his voice breaking completely. "Don't let it end like this." She stopped at the edge of the stage and turned back one final time. The entire studio held its breath, waiting for her last words. "It's not ending like this, Jimmy," she said, her voice carrying across the silent studio with perfect clarity. "It already ended the moment you decided my dignity was worth less than your entertainment. Everything that happens after this is just the consequence of that choice." And with that, Jennifer Lopez walked off the Jimmy Kimmel live stage, leaving behind a host in ruins, an audience in shock, and a moment that would be remembered as the night a superstar reminded the world exactly why she deserved to be treated like one. The camera lingered on Jimmy's devastated face for several seconds before cutting to commercial, but the damage was already done. In less than 30 minutes, Jennifer Lopez had delivered a masterclass in standing up for yourself, and Jimmy Kimmel had learned the hardest lesson of his career. What did you think of this explosive confrontation? Have you ever seen anything like this on live television? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and make sure to subscribe for more shocking celebrity moments that you won't see anywhere else.